Welcome to a special crossover episode of MissTrial, joined by Michael Popok, none other than my amazing co-host on the Wednesday edition of Legal AF, here to join Danya Perry, Kathleen Rice, and me. We are all here to discuss all things that are going on, so much going on that we had to have Popok come on our show. We're so grateful, Pope, to have you here. And it was great last night. We had a great episode of Legal AF. We woke up this morning to a lot of views, so it's fantastic. And really, we all appreciate you being here today. We're going to talk about a couple of things going on. Kind of nothing much happening in the world today, but the Department of Justice is just rocking and rolling, indicting everybody. And big news in New York today, or I guess it came out last night, but the indictment was unsealed today, where the mayor of New York City, a sitting mayor, while he is sitting mayor, this isn't later, this isn't some other time, this is the current mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, has been indicted by the United States Attorney's Office, the Southern District of New York, on bribery and corruption charges. So we're going to touch on that a little bit, because it really does show that the Department of Justice is nonpartisan. They don't, Trump, for all they only go after their political rivals, et cetera. Eric Adams is a Democrat. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that and what's going on there. And really, Popok, what I'm most excited to talk to you about is you listened in on the oral arguments, the whole oral argument today in the Donald Trump civil fraud case in New York. Also, the case in front of Judge Arthur Engoron, where he was ordered to pay upwards of $400 million in penalties when the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, brought this sweeping case. And we want to hear your thoughts on how that oral argument went, whether or not that's going to the judgment is going to stand, and whether or not the judges, the five-judge panel, I think it was a five-judge panel, whether the judges were amenable to some of his arguments. And finally, of course, we're going to talk about the 180-page bomb that Jack Smith is supposed to drop on the court today, and what we expect it to be, and when we expect to see it, and what will be in it and what won't be in it, et cetera. So much to talk about, so much going on at the intersection of law and politics, as we like to say. But it's just great to have you, Popok, and thank you so much for being here. We love having dinner with you, and we love doing all things with Michael Popok.
I told the world yesterday on our podcast, when we were selling this too and crossing over here, that I am the only person in America, I think, that can say that had dinner with MissTrial. I was lucky enough. We all of us were in the same place, the same time, the same restaurant, really great Chinese restaurant at Midtown, which I had never been to. And it was just great. And from there, we said, why aren't we on each other's shows more? And why aren't we more collaborative that way? And here we have this opportunity. Big fan. This is like big fan, long time listener, first time caller. Glad I'm here on this podcast. And I'm just glad there's news. When we all put this show together, and you put this show together recently, we put our show together, Legal AF, a long time ago. There's going to be enough to talk about on a daily basis at this intersection of law and politics. Well, at least tonight there is.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing you started this new YouTube channel also, Popok, the Legal AF YouTube channel, because there is so much to talk about. There's not enough room on the regular Midas Touch YouTube channel to fit all of the news that is dropping constantly. So that's a great thing. And if anyone hasn't subscribed to that, please go and subscribe. We're trying to get that up to 100,000 by the weekend, or did we already get there?
No, we're at 90. We're going to get 100. We're just not going to get it with everybody's help. go to at Legal AF MTN for Midas Touch Network, Legal AF MTN, and free subscribe. It'll be another great channel in collaboration with Midas Touch Network for legal and political contributors. And just again, honored to be doing whatever I can to contribute to MissTrial tonight.
Yeah, well, MissTrial looks forward to contributing to that YouTube channel. So we're going to be big content providers, because, it's frustrating when we record something and there's not enough room to go up there, all competing for space. So
days are over.
Those days are over. So good job, Pope.
Thank you.
So let's start with just this Eric Adams. When I saw this indictment come down, I mean, first of all, it's shocking, right? That you have to ask yourself, what's so important that they're going to actually indict and then arrest, although he hasn't been arrested yet, Eric Adams, the sitting mayor of New York City, in the middle of the United Nations General Assembly. So think about it, right? Last night, I was walking around the seaport with my husband. We were just sort of having a little stroll, and all of a sudden we noticed all the boats, the New York Harbor and the East River there was no boats, not a single boat except police boats. They had shut down New York Harbor. And then we noticed they'd shut down the FDR Drive, and all you could see were police vehicles. And the next thing you know, it was pretty incredible, actually. We watched Marine One, the helicopter with it looks like a giant drone with the two rotating blades, leave from the south, I don't know what it's called, where the helicopter pad is. And President Biden was in there. And as if this was some choreographed dance, I don't know. Right as soon as he took off and left, all of a sudden they dropped this bomb. The New York Times just reported Eric Adams has been indicted. And so when you think about it, this is right now going on in New York City is the UN General Assembly, right? You've got heads of state from all over the world, including the President of the United States, all gathering here. Mayor Adams is the command, he appointed the police commissioner. He is running the city. He is responsible for the security of all of these individuals and of keeping all the trains moving on time. What was so terrible that this Department of Justice had to indict and arrest him, a fellow Democrat, by the way, in the middle of all of this. So we found out today just these sweeping indictment, these charges of corruption, just incredible corruption and bribery that was just unbelievable. But it dates back a long time. It went back pretty far. So for whatever, maybe I'm the only one, but I was struck by why now and why in the middle of all of this. It just seemed very strange, the timing. But, he released a statement saying he expected it. He said he's going to fight it. And right out of Trump's playbook, he used some familiar terms of, they indicted you, I'm going to fight for you. So this sort of very familiar kind of playbook of Trump being accused. But, the other thing that just really struck me about it was the fact that, Trump constantly is accusing Merrick Garland and, as he calls it, Biden's DOJ of going after his political rivals. Well, Eric Adams is a Democrat. So I think that should just disprove that. And Danya, you worked at the Southern District of New York. You were a supervisor. That prosecutors, especially there, they go after anybody without fear or favor. It's never politically motivated. And Donald Trump's claims that anything is politically motivated is just false. It does not happen.
Although, Karen, it's worth noting that Adams also had some of that, verbiage, I think, in his public statement, right? That he was being targeted for some of the views that he's taken and in opposition to the Biden administration. So there are some reverberations, even though, as you say, when I was in the Southern District for well over a decade, we prosecuted Democrats, we prosecuted Republicans. It really did not matter. You do look at the facts and the law on its own. Here, they took well over a year, right? His phone was seized over a year ago. And so this was a long and painstaking investigation. I'll just say, as you and Kathleen know, I have some involvement with the totally separate piece of the New York City investigation. So I'm not going to say too much about it. I know nothing about this Turkish, foreign contributions and the campaign finance piece of it. And you two are walled off from what I'm involved with. So, I can certainly talk at a high level in terms of how the SDNY typically operates, but I certainly have, nothing to say about the specifics of this indictment, from any insider perspective. But I agree with you. I think that is pretty much the modus operandi of the Southern District of New York, for sure. And I think, as far as I've experienced it over the past several decades, the Department of Justice, for the most part, with some exceptions that we've talked about during the Trump administration.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
we get into that. We have too much to talk about today.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to get right over to this oral argument, this judge ongoing, unless Popok or Kathleen, you wanted to say anything about Adams and this indictment. I'm just chomping at the bit because I know you listened to the whole oral argument, Popok, and I didn't. So I want to hear everything.
Well, I'll make one comment. Kathleen, do you want to go first about Adams?
All I would say is that, this does matter to the people of the city of New York. I mean, it's horrible that the mayor felt the need to say that because I criticized the, migrant border policy that the Biden administration has proposed and overseen, that has resulted in billions of dollars of costs to New York City that have not been covered by the federal government, which is a legitimate complaint. But mayors have been complaining about administrations of the same party and other parties forever. And I just think it's sad that he is choosing at this time in the political atmosphere that we are in to do that. But I'm interested to see what Governor Hochul is going to do, because as defiant as Eric Adams is, the reality is he has one of the biggest jobs in the world. It's the highest profile city, the greatest city in the world, and he is the mayor. And let's see how long he can remain defiant as he has. The governor certainly has the power to remove him. That would require then, I guess, that the public advocate, Jumaane Williams, would take over in a temporary basis, and he would then have to call for a special election. But these are critical times. And I just, New York City needs someone who can lead with integrity and credibility, and not have this kind of sideshow overtaking, the really important stuff that he needs to do on a day-to-day basis.
So 2 quick points following up on Kathleen. One, weaponization, my ass. This same office that's prosecuting Adams has also prosecuted Menendez, the senator with the gold bars in his closet. The shooter, would-be assassin of Donald Trump, is being prosecuted by the Department of Justice, Main Justice, and the Southern District of Florida. If there is corruption, if there is violent crime that rises to the level of a federal crime, Merrick Garland, the Department of Justice, Biden, whoever's in charge of it, is prosecuting it. And for Eric Adams, and I saw his press conference, to surround himself with a whole group from his community, along with Alex Spiro, his lawyer, to claim that everything, I'm fine with people being presumed innocent in our system of government and everybody having a defense. But for Eric Adams to stand there and say that I'm not corrupt, I didn't take the hundreds of thousands of dollars of foreign influence money. It didn't start when I was Brooklyn borough president. That's the dates when this indictment started. So if they're right and he's wrong, he's been corrupt since 2016 and 2017. And to try to turn Donald Trump's weaponization of the Department of Justice and use it to his advantage. And I don't think Governor Hochul is going to remove him. She certainly, as Kathleen pointed out, has the power to. I like this little quirky New York thing, which is the Inability Committee, which is a committee under the New York Charter that allows 5 major players, including the controller, the chief counsel for the Corp Council, a vice mayor, and some other people, to get together and decide that the mayor has to go. And that group could meet, and at least one of the members of the Inability Committee that would be put together is somebody who's running for mayor. So there's many different ways he doesn't survive this, at least staying in office from now until the primary. So those are my 2 kind of observations on that.
I've heard defense attorneys say, when asked, how do you defend a case? They say, well, first you go after the facts. If you don't have the facts on your side, you attack the law. If you don't have the law on your side, you attack the prosecutor. So I guess that's what Trump does, and I guess what Mayor Adams is doing, and going after the prosecutor. So it'll be very interesting. And yes, everyone is innocent until until they're presumed innocent until proven guilty for sure, and he deserves that same presumption. But I agree. Let's see. First of all, the allegations, the indictment is quite extensive, and the allegations are quite sweeping. And, some of it is like, well, he upgraded a flight here and there, et cetera. But, the lengths he went to, if it's true, the lengths he went to cover it up and to lie and to leave, envelopes of cash and then change records, et cetera. I mean, it reads pretty damning, I have to say.
And there's four separate investigations going on, 3 by the Southern District of New York, Danya's old office, 1 by the Eastern District of New York. There's 10 different people that have either had their homes raided, their phones picked up, including Eric Adams, have had to resign. We lost not 1, but 2 police commissioners in the course of 10 days, all obviously a signal by the feds that nobody was safe. I mean, we lost the police commissioner when his brother got picked up and his phone got picked up. And 2 weeks later, we lost Tom Donlin because he's got his own Homeland Security problem. And we knew that this swirling of the 4 investigations was definitely going to, who was at the common denominator at the center of all 4 investigations? Eric Adams and the other people that were indicted along with him here. So we'll keep a close watch on it. I just think it's an example, as we've all said here, of there's no weaponization. Of, if you guys were prosecutors, I've been a lifelong defense lawyer. I never think that the prosecutors are weaponized against me. I think my client needs a defense, obviously, but not this playing the politics card is really getting to be insufferable.
The one thing I also want to just comment on, and I'm always amazed, is the 36,000 members of the New York City Police Department who are just amazing. And that in the midst of all of, and I worked with them for a long time. Are they perfect? No, but they are really amazing and unbelievable. And just that in the midst of all this turmoil and losing 2 police commissioners in a row, and just, having their homes searched, and there's a lot of chaos and turmoil in the leadership at the top. And the fact that they don't miss a beat and can keep this city safe, and to keep all these heads of state, including the president of the United States, safe all during all of this is just a huge testament to the men and women who serve at the New York City Police Department. So I just wanted to give them a shout out because, I'm very grateful to them. So just want to turn to the oral arguments today in New York in the Appellate Division, First Department. But before we do that, we're going to take a really quick ad break. Have you heard about senolytics yet? It's a class of ingredients discovered less than 10 years ago, and they're being called the biggest discovery of our time for promoting healthy aging and enhancing your physical prime. Your life goals in your career and beyond require productivity, but let's be honest, the aging process is not our friend when it comes to endless energy and productivity. That's why I use Qualia Senolytic. If someone would have told me that there's a science-backed ingredient that could help me feel 15 years younger in a matter of months, I wouldn't have believed it. But then I tried Qualia Senolytics because as we age, everyone accumulates something called senescent cells or zombie cells in their body. They cause symptoms of aging such as aches and discomfort. They make you slow down when you work out. You're sluggish, your mental health and physical energy associated with everything, that middle-age feeling. It's really unpleasant, take it from me, I know, but these are old and worn out cells in your body not serving any useful function for health anymore. They're taking up space and nutrients from our healthy cells. So much like pruning the yellowing and dead leaves off a plant, Qualia Senolytic removes those worn out senescent cells to allow for the rest of them to thrive in the body. Take it just 2 days a month. The formula is non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, and the ingredients are meant to complement one another, factoring in the combined effect of all ingredients together. It has a 100-day money-back guarantee, and this clinically tested 2-day rejuvenation regimen may hold the key to unlocking cellular health and revitalizing aging tissues throughout the body. New research on aging and longevity, including a clinical study on Qualia Senolytic, show that senolytic supplementation can play a huge role in enhancing how we age. So I have started using using Qualia Senolytic. As everyone knows, I'm always trying to fight back the fact that I'm 58 years old, and it is making me feel younger. In fact, I've been walking a lot more. I walked 10 miles the other day, and it just makes me feel like I have more energy, I'm more productive at work, and more enthusiastic in life, and I have less aches and pains. Always a great thing. So resist aging at the cellular level. Try Qualia Senolytic. Go to qualialife.com/MissTrial for up to 50% off, and use MissTrial at checkout for an additional 15% off. That's for your convenience. Qualia Senolytic is also available at select GNC locations near you. That's Qualia, QUALIA, life.com/MissTrial for an extra 15% off your purchase. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode. All right, we are back. We love our pro-democracy sponsors. We're so lucky to have them. They're the ones who help us keep the lights on. And thank you to Jordy and everybody else in the team who goes out and curates these sponsors for us. So it's really fantastic. So Popok, tell us all about the oral argument, please. I'm dying to hear.
Reporting for duty. So we have two levels of appeals in New York that we all practice in front of. The Appellate Division First Department, which probably most of us are members of or were admitted through, is the main appellate court we all have to go to, whether we have commercial cases or criminal cases. It sits in Manhattan. And when you have an appeal, you have a 5-justice randomly selected panel. And we have our panel for the oral argument today after full briefing as to whether any part or all of Judge Engoron's $465 million fraud judgment, disgorgement judgment against Donald Trump, the kids, and the Trump Organization for persistent fraud under a unique New York statute that empowers the Attorney General to be the watchdog of financial markets and Wall Street and business dealings in what is the financial capital of the world, New York. We call it 63-12, the executive law. And it gives the tremendously robust powers that really are unique. There's not too many attorney generals that have this power. She doesn't have a lot of criminal powers, as most attorney generals do, but she has this. And that position has had it for quite some time. And whoever's been the occupant in that office, I know Letitia James gets a lot of grief from Donald Trump and MAGA, but whoever's been in that office has used the powers of 63-12 to go after fraud on Wall Street. You can, and a lot of those attorney generals then use it as a springboard to become governors. That's just the feeder. That's the training academy for governor a lot in this state. And so she brought her case and alleged that Donald Trump had defrauded the market, defrauded counterparties, committed persistent fraud in his business operations for 10 years by overinflating his assets and underreporting his liabilities or underreporting his assets for tax purposes and overinflating them in order to get loans, get deals, get insurance, anything he had to do with a counterparty. And it's a unique statute because it's not like your run-of-the-mill garden variety fraud statute, which requires certain elements that she doesn't have to prove in her courtroom. She doesn't have to prove reliance, that somebody relied on the fraudulent statement. And that makes sense because her position is trying to police financial markets. And we don't just let fraud happen in New York and just go, no harm, no foul. Nobody believed it. So keep being a fraudster and the sophisticated market won't respond to you. That's not how it works. And that's something that has never gotten through the head of the lawyers for Donald Trump or Donald Trump. This is the case, of course, where they were bashing Judge Engoron. They were bashing Judge Engoron's principal law secretary or law clerk, regularly bashing Judge Engoron's wife. Donald Trump got found in contempt and found to be completely not reliable and basically committed perjury. Same case. And Donald Trump's been paying effectively $100,000 a day in running interest on the $465 million. Now, this panel, which is just for those that are into inside baseball stuff, Justice Renwick, Moulton, Higgett, Rosado, and Friedman. For those that follow this game closely at home, Justice Friedman is the justice who kept granting things in favor of Donald Trump to stay aspects of the case. And we're always like, what is this guy's deal? And then he get reversed by the full panel when they all got together because he was kind of the duty judge that day. The wheels spun and he ended up on the full panel today. But the presiding judge is the chief judge of the First Department, and that's Justice Renwick and Justice Moulton. So for me, listening to the oral argument and knowing the players, the intellectual heft or the fulcrum on the court is really Renwick and Moulton, and they led the charge. Any lawyer that practices regularly in New York knows it's difficult to get the entirety of your money judgment and or for disgorgement approved without any discount haircut at the Appellate Division First Department. They are just ready with their pen to cross off whole categories of damages. And so you don't, start spending your money, even if you're on the plaintiff side, until you get through the Appellate Division First Department. It's sort of a meat grinder. So based on the arguments that were raised, John Sauer, seems to be the go-to appellate lawyer for Donald Trump, and for good reason. I'm going to give him some credit. I can't listen to him because it sounds like he gargled with the broken glass and bourbon before he started arguing. But he has been successful at the United States Supreme Court twice for Donald Trump. He got the Colorado ballot thing in Donald Trump's favor, so he wasn't banned as an insurrectionist. And he won the immunity decision. There was no other way to read the immunity ruling on July 1st in the Supreme Court than John Sauer won. So he's not a New York appellate lawyer. So they brought with them, for a little home cooking, they brought along with them a guy that's probably in the courtroom, in that particular courtroom, 3 times a week, and is known well by all of the justices, a guy named Brian Isaac. When I saw Brian Isaac up there, I'm like, oh, here we go. So all Brian Isaac did was stroke the justices. You are the best. You're the greatest. There's a reason that we are considered the greatest appellate division. And I'm like, is he going to stop jerking their chain and get to an argument? He eventually did. Talked about reversing the judgment and why it's too large and the reversible error here. John Sauer's major argument is that Judge Engoron got the prior rulings of this particular court, different panel, wrong, and that he used facts that were stale, that had fallen outside the statute of limitations. He had used numbers that he should not have used in calculating the disgorgement, which is the ripping away of ill-gotten gains from somebody because they shouldn't have made that money because of the fraud. It's not exactly damage. It's an equitable claim of remedy of disgorgement. But my heart sank a bit, and I did a hot take on this, which I think is either going to go up on the Midas Touch Network or Legal AF MTN, about Justice Moulton's comment about halfway through. The other side of the argument was being led by a very spectacular, very talented appellate lawyer for the New York Attorney General's office, Judith Vale. I don't know if any of you have ever been and worked with Judith Vale, but she did a great job, and she's no nonsense, just the way I like it. Just the way I like my oral argument. She just got right. John Sauer thinks he's getting paid by the word. He's very not helpful. I talked to some former judges on that panel, on that court. They were all like, yeah, that kind of guy's not helpful to us. We just want him to stop talking so we can look in the record and the briefs. But Judith Vale did well. But in response to a back and forth between her and Justice Moulton, who I think could end up writing the opinion on a majority decision, so you got to get at least three votes. He said he was troubled, his words, by the size of the judgment. So he and then Friedman is down at the other end of the panel, just throwing softballs and kisses and love notes to John Sauer. So they're never going to get Friedman's vote. The question is, can Moulton and Renwick count to 3 and get 3 votes and keep intact the judgment? And here's my bottom line prediction based on what I heard, with the caveat for those that don't do this for a living and joined MissTrial and Legal AF to learn about these things. I've done appellate advocacy where I thought I had them eating out of my hand. I am definitely going to win this appeal. They asked the right questions. I answered them, and they seemed to be on my side. And then I get the ruling a month later. It's like I lost, or vice versa. Hot bench. I leave the courtroom checking my backside to make sure my behind is still there. And then I get the order a month later. I won. So sometimes it's hard to tell. But I didn't like Moulton saying troubling. What I think is going to happen is that with the floor of $175 million, which is the amount that they required Donald Trump to put up as a bond, they're going to come somewhere, I don't know about between, but I think in the $250, $300 million range, they're going to lower that judgment. But they're not, this is my prediction, my professional judgment, they're not going to throw it out. They're not going to vacate it. And he's still going to have the persistent fraud scarlet letter against him in his business operations with a sizable few $100 million judgment. And I think we're going to get that ruling before the election.
I didn't listen to the oral argument, but I did read a little bit about it. And so take it what I'm saying with, that through that lens. But one of the things they seemed to be talking about was the use of the statute here, because what they were saying was, I thought, was this statute is usually used for protecting consumers. And here, Deutsche Bank didn't need protecting from Donald Trump. They were sophisticated people, and these were all sophisticated parties, and they were asking, has this statute ever been used in a situation like this before? And at least the reporting seemed to suggest that the Attorney General's office couldn't point to anything. Was that an issue at all during the arguments?
Yeah, one of Friedman really led the argument on that, and he's totally wrong. Okay, 63-12 is not a consumer protection statute. It is a financial markets watchdog regulator statute. And if just by its very nature, Wall Street and the financial markets and the business community are generally sophisticated. So you can't use as an out, well, there were sophisticated parties on both sides, so therefore 63-12 doesn't work. Well, then just rip it out of the books. And the court is not supposed to be the legislature. If the legislature wanted to limit it, and even other panels of the First Department have applied 63-12 exactly like this. I mean, it is a case of first impression overall. I would agree with that. And but there's other cases that come up to the water's edge, including cases involving Donald Trump. When Eric Schneiderman was the Attorney General, who used 63-12 against Trump, and they made law about it. So unless they're going to rewrite completely the precedent that's already been set, which the appellate division doesn't usually do, then I think that argument that it's consumer protection is a complete revisionist history and inconsistent with the legislative history of how that was passed and how it's ever been used in the last 40 years. So I'm not that worried about, even though it was interesting that it came up in the Friedman, I think, and others sort of did it. Rosado didn't say much during this, so I really can't give you any indication on that particular one. But I don't think, to answer your question just succinctly, I don't see that as the thing that is going to throw out or vacate the judgment.
So what about the statute of limitations?
Can I just ask just on that before we move to the statute of limitations? Did the question of deterrence come up? Because often, yes, fraud can occur between two sophisticated parties, but little folks can get caught up in, as collateral consequences. But a lot of these regulations are meant, and laws are meant for prudential reasons to deter fraud, even among sophisticated parties who might be well counseled. Was that something that come up? Because it's something I've heard before in this.
Yeah, you're right on it. You hit the nail right on the head. Justice Renwick led with that and said, "Why aren't we talking about deterrence? Isn't that the thing?" Because then you're into that channel that we're mapping out here, which is it can be used for consumer protection, where you have a poor, unsuspecting widow or orphan over here that needs protection. And there's always a power imbalance between the consumer and the company, the insurance company, the business. But here, nobody's claiming that Deutsche Bank is a babe in the woods. What we're claiming is that and this is the deterrence part, because without it, think about what would happen. To take, Danya, your observation, of course, to its natural conclusion, what would happen? Then you could just get away with it as long as the other party was sophisticated. And then you would just do more. You do more of it, right? And that's what Vail said. That's what she said during her oral argument, which is, I know you think the number is troubling, but it's because the fraud was so successful and for so many years, and he shouldn't get the benefit of saying, whoa, what a big number that I was able to rip off from banks and insurance companies. And that's too big for the court system and 63-12 to even handle. That can't be the argument. Has to be deterrence. That's where I think Renwick, and if that's going to be the poll star, the guiding light for the decision, I think that's why I'm in the position it's not going to be vacated. Although the casual observer and a lot of these court watchers on corporate media, they're like, oh shit, hot bench. This judgment's going down. I don't think that's going to happen.
I mean, it's just strange.
So back to disagree.
No. I don't mean to dominate. I just, it's so strange to me that you would look at a judgment and think, oh, it's too big, instead of looking at it and say, holy shit, the fraud is so that, must be reflective of the, that's just the skepticism there is, I don't like that. So the statute of limitations was an issue for the appellate division before, which is why, if you remember that Ivanka Trump, who was originally charged along with her brothers and her father, the appellate division had found that Judge Engoron applied the wrong equation with the statute of limitations and told him what to do and removed Ivanka from the action, saying she was beyond the statute. And one of the arguments that Trump was making was that Engoron didn't apply that properly, that they went back too far, because there's in general, a statute of limitations means a case has to proceed within a certain amount of time, or you're out of the window and you cannot bring that case. And there are certain provisions that press pause or toll the statute of limitations. First among that is an agreement between the parties, which existed here for various parties. And also COVID was the governor pressed pause on statutes of limitation during COVID. So it isn't straightforward, and then there's motion practice that can stop, different, or that's speedy trial, sorry. But so statute of limitations is a thing that it was an issue in this case, and it's not just a straightforward from the date that it happened thing. And so, and that was an issue before. Was that an issue today, Popok?
Yes, very much so. That's really how John Sauer led off, which is Judge Engoron got the prior rulings wrong about the statute of limitations, used under a continuing fraud analysis, improperly used prior acts that had gone stale. And just so we don't always talk in shorthand, and I know we do this all the time, but we try not to on our various podcasts, there is, for every cause of action or crime, generally, there is a statute of limitations in which that indictment or complaint suit has to be filed. And it's just a race to the courthouse. And sometimes it's a long statute of limitations. Sometimes it's short. Sometimes it's told, like in fraud, it can be told for, when you discover the fraud, there's different times that different clocks are running. But when you're when you're a quasi prosecutor in the case that you're representing the people of the state of New York, like New York Attorney General was, she was always mindful. She always had one eye on the clock about her investigation. Now, it took her a minute to get it up and running. A couple of years. She had some issues there and had to make some decisions about which things to put in and which things to put out. But she knew that there was things that were falling off the continuum, and potentially defendants like Ivanka Trump or Ivanka Kirshner today that fell off the continuum if she didn't get the tolling agreement. And on your world, when you guys were prosecutors and I was on the other side, you'd say, well, we're going to indict you next week unless you sign this tolling agreement and give us another year to do the investigation. And you'd be like, generally, you'd say, all right, because you didn't want to get indicted next week. Sometimes you would say no, because you thought you had a good case and you wanted to call their bluff, and boom. And then they'd say, well, shit, we're not ready. We're not ready ourselves. And okay. And that here on a civil case, she went to the parties and said, I need more, here's a tolling agreement, or I'm gonna, and they said, all right, well, we're not giving you the tolling agreement. So she knew going in, and the appellate division had gotten rid of in a prior ruling, Ivanka. because they found that most of what, if she did any, not because they exonerated her, but they said if she did anything wrong fraudulently, she did it before 2017, and we got the statute of limitations, she's gone. And so they argued today. They kept calling her Miss Trump, but it really was Kushner. They argued today. Well, just like that, just like the Ivanka. Same reason, and he should have done a better job. Engoron should have done a better job, and he just lumped it all together on a continuing fraud theory, and he threw all the numbers in. Now, I've looked at that order. We all have at various times, and I thought he did a very, very good job of being methodical. He had been reversed partially by that panel before, and given directions and instructions about how to map their decision onto his ultimate judgment. No jury here. 63-12 doesn't get you a jury. We could fight over whether Alina Habba, at least when she was handling the case, should have asked for one, but to preserve it for appellate review purposes. But she didn't get one, and so was Engoron, listening to looking at thousands and thousands of pages, a mountain of evidence, dozens and dozens of witnesses, and he did a very good job. He took a month off to write the opinion, and I think it will ultimately survive. But that is their number one argument to argue for the entire throwing out of the judgment on the Trump side, is that the judge got the statute of limitations, the application of the prior rulings of another panel of the appellate division. Just to be completely confusing, different panels ruled on different things, and there was no overlap. Nobody that was on the summary judgment panel was on today's oral argument panel. Doesn't mean that prior ruling's not binding. Summary judgments are a little bit tricky, but it just means there was no overlap, and these people all had to get up to speed quickly and read the briefs and understand the case for themselves.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kathleen, anything? Danya, anything else on this?
Go ahead, Kathleen.
No, just curious. So again, the timing of when you think this is all going to happen, you said you definitely think it's going to be before Election Day. Yeah. I mean, do they consider things like that? I mean, what's the...
No, that's based on generally, and this is, again, a unique case that is for a case of first impression with lots of high-profile people involved and a lot at stake, and they know it's going to go up to the Court of Appeals, the highest court in New York, and so they want to get it right. But generally, when you make an oral argument on full briefing in front of this panel, you generally get a decision within a month to 6 weeks. All right. I just think that they normally would do that anyway. And I think they probably have one eye on the election clock and think, maybe we're going to do it anyway. So that means sometime in mid-October. Maybe they missed the date, to answer your question. I don't think it's the driver, but it normally takes them about a month to render the opinion. I mean, they will meet after today. They will meet in caucus. They will talk about it. It's not law clerk driven in New York like Supreme Court is. The judges meet and talk. They'll exchange ideas. They'll figure out where the majority is, and Renwick will assign somebody to write it. It could be herself, or it could be what I think would be Moulton. We'll see. And then the opinions get drafted and circulated and make sure the votes still hold. And that takes a minute. So it could, it's a long-winded way of saying, Kathleen, it could go over the election. My gut is they'll try to do it before the election.
All right, one to watch. It's, from everything you've said, Pope, and from what I've read, it does sound like, there's some reason to believe that they will affirm on the merits, but perhaps reduce the amount of disgorgement. And I think there's some support for that. You tell me if I'm wrong here, but the fact that they reduce the amount of bond I know it's a different panel, but from what you've said anecdotally, in the past with the typical, redlining of disgorgement awards and also the specific questions, that sounds like not an unlikely scenario. So,
well, to your point, it's the same panel that's at the 175.
Okay.
Yeah, that one was the same panel.
Okay, so then that could be a good predictor, huh? So, all right.
Yeah, God, that is interesting. Wow. Well, we're going to take our second ad break, but just right as we are speaking, Josh Gerstein on X has just tweeted out that breaking Special Counsel Jack Smith has filed the compilation of evidence he'd present against Trump at trial on 2020 election conspiracy case per DOJ. We have complied with the court's order. Spokesman says nothing public yet on the docket. So fascinating. And we are going to talk about the fact that that just dropped and what's going on as soon as we get back from our next ad break. Support for today's episode comes from OneSkin. Did you have a little too much fun in the sun this summer? It's no secret that UV rays can take a toll on our skin, leaving it dry, tired, and less vibrant. If you want to hit the undo button on UV-induced aging, say hello to OneSkin, your secret weapon against this summer's toll on your skin. OneSkin products are all powered by the revolutionary OS1 peptide. This proprietary peptide is scientifically proven to reduce dysfunctional, also called senescent cells, from your skin. That's a central source of skin aging. Their scientists have shown that it can actually reverse the biological age of skin by several years in their groundbreaking research. Healthier, more youthful looking skin doesn't just look great, which obviously I want and we all want, but it's also good for your overall health as well. As the leaves change color this fall, help your skin undergo its own transformation with OneSkin. Their products work tirelessly to repair, rejuvenate, and erase the signs of summer damage, ensuring your step into this new season with the healthiest skin of your life. Head over to oneskin.co, there's no M on the end, and explore how their products can become your skin's new savior. For a limited time, our listeners get 15% off OneSkin with our code MissTrial. That's MISS trial. Okay, MissTrial, one word, 2 S's, at oneskin.co. I love OneSkin. I swear by it. I use it every single day, especially in the fall when it's going to get very, very dry. I'm going to use it every day religiously. People often say I look younger than my age. I'm 58. I'm a grandmother. You can see it's time to dye my roots. And I'm not going to let my skin make me look older or even look my age. I want to look younger for as long as possible. And so I love OneSkin. It's the world's first skin longevity company. It addresses skin health at the molecular level, targeting the root causes of aging so skin behaves, feels, and appears younger. It's time to get started with your new face. It's great. This is amazing routine. And use it at a discounted rate today. Get 15% off with your code MissTrial at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code MissTrial, MISSTRIAL. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. We only have one body, one skin, and only you can choose to make it better. Age healthy with OneSkin. Are you looking for something simple and delicious to add to your wellness routine? Manukora honey is fantastic, and you can put it in your breakfast tea. You can use it in protein shakes, salad dressings. I use it also in marinades. I love it, and it puts other honeys to shame. It's rich, creamy, and complex flavor with health benefits, and it made me switch from regular honey and artificial sweeteners to this amazing new product. So I love it. It's from the remote forests of New Zealand, and Manukora's master beekeepers are the ones who produce this incredible nutrient-rich honey that supports immunity and gut health. So the bees collect the nectar from the Manuka tea tree in New Zealand, and it's packed with bioactives, and the honey that is produced is 3 times stronger with antioxidants and prebiotics than your average honey. So there's also a special antibacterial compound called MGO that comes from the nectar of the tea tree. So Manukora third-party tests every single harvest for MGO and makes these results available through their QR system. So it's a game changer, and all you need is 1 heaped teaspoon each morning to get the most out of the amazing bioactives in Manuka honey. So this is just fantastic. Use it instead of other sweeteners, and it's really a honey with superpowers. So it's easier now than ever to try Manukora honey. Head to manukora.com/misstrial to get $25 off the starter kit, which comes with an MGO 850 plus Manuka honey jar, 5 honey travel sticks, a wooden spoon, and a guidebook. So that's manukora.com/mistrial with 2 S's, MISSTRIAL. And thank you so much, Manukora, for sponsoring MissTrial. Well, we're back. Love our sponsors, and not just because they support the episode, but we tried them out. I love their products. Like, I wouldn't sit here and talk about them if I did not love them. So they're really, really fantastic. So let's get to our final topic. This 180-page plus bomb that Jack Smith has just dropped on the court. It's going to the court first, and the court is going to talk about, or is going to decide, what can be public and what can't be public, what's sensitive information, what's not. Danya, I know you only have a couple minutes left with us. So you've been talking a lot on MissTrial about this opportunity to show the world what is there. Now, this is a really detailed indictment. And so what more could possibly, before you leave, could you just talk to us a little bit about what more could possibly be in this motion that Jack Smith is dropping that's not already pled in the indictment?
Yeah, so the indictment is what's called the speaking indictment, which is, it's not just the bare bones elements of each of the crimes that are alleged, but it provides some context and some flesh on the bones, as it were. But it does not provide all the evidentiary support for the allegations in that indictment. And so what I think we can expect here is going to be some of that fleshing out of how the government, not what it's going to prove, but how it's going to prove it. And it's required to do that. The government is required to do that because it's been put to its paces by the Supreme Court in its immunity decision, where they decided that this district court judge, Judge Danya Chutkan, is going to have to make fact-based determinations as to what is and what is not an official act. And so they are going to have to prove, I keep saying they, but the government is going to have to make a showing to this judge's satisfaction that the allegations that remain in this superseding or new indictment are allegations that not only don't concern official acts, which we now know are immune, but also don't even rely on evidence that has anything to do with these official acts. So it's kind of a tough row to hoe, but these prosecutors obviously have produced quite a fulsome volume here for the judge's consideration, and hopefully at some point ours, should it be unsealed, or portions of it.
Yeah, I myself am very much looking forward to seeing what is in there. This is going to be incredible, right? As you just said, they're going to have to set out facts, because, just to remind everyone, the Supreme Court created 3 categories. Essentially, first of all, they created new law in July, right? There was no such thing as presidential immunity, period, for criminal cases. And this is a new concept. There are no other jobs in the world that you get immunity for doing your job from criminal prosecution, because one would argue that it is, if you're committing a crime while you're doing your job, you're not actually doing your job, because it's never your job to commit a crime. But the Supreme Court disagreed. And so they created this new thing called presidential immunity from prosecution for official acts. And there were certain things that you're absolutely immune. And that's if you are essentially doing your job, your core presidential functions, things that are in the Constitution, for example, being commander in chief of the military, if you sold, pardons, whatever. It's those are the kinds of things that they were saying those are core presidential functions. Now, on the other end of the spectrum are private acts, right? Things that are entirely private. Those you are not immune from, even if you happen to be president when you do them. But in the middle is this category where you may or may not be, right? You're presumptively immune, but it could be personal, it could be professional. And so those are the things that Jack Smith is going to have to support and give reason why, when, for example, President Trump was talking to Vice President Pence, why that was not official, because it was actually candidate for President Trump talking to candidate for Vice President Pence. And so he's going to show the surrounding documents around that, about why it is that these were candidates, i.e. people seeking office, right? Just private citizen at the time when you're doing that, like any other person seeking office, and therefore not immune. And so those are the types of things that should be in this brief to help the court understand what that he would be immune from and what he would not be immune from. But because this is such a big deal, and because there is this sensitive information category, that there is a protective order in place. And ironically, that was a protective order asked for by Jack Smith because of Trump. They didn't want Trump to try this in the case of public opinion. Well, Jack Smith is bound by it too. And as much as we would all love to see absolutely everything, the judge is going to have to go through it first and determine what in there is sensitive material and what can be seen publicly. So, hello.
Kathleen, you wanna do some color around that?
So, I mean, look, we'll have to see. My concern is always, it's hard for me not to see things through a political lens. But I think it's really important for the public to understand what the facts are here, what the evidence would show, because it's not likely that, how many of these cases are actually going to come to a real ending. And so, there's so much, and just, Eric Adams is going to be arraigned tomorrow. God knows what he's going to say there, but there's so much political division around courts and the law now. Rightly or wrongly, if you're on the Republican side, you feel like Donald Trump is being persecuted. Now you have Eric Adams saying he's being persecuted too. It would be nice in this case for the judge to to be more open than not, and let the court let there be a public opinion for people to have, so they know what the facts are. Because in the absence of that, people are just left to go there in their tribal way. Whatever their political affiliation is, that's what they're going to believe. So that's all. I just worry about, when are we ever going to get back to a time when there's such a thing as an actual fact that everyone agrees on, and then you can decide what the value of that fact is, and where we don't just have this immediate knee-jerk reaction of distrust of whatever the institution is, whether it's a courtroom or a DA's office or a U.S. Attorney's office or DOJ. And maybe I'm just being Pollyanna about it. I don't know if the genie's out of the bottle and it's never going to go back to where people just inherently trust what happens. So that's my wish. That's my hope. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, it would be nice for sure.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Pope.
Didn't mean to step on you there. The 180 pages is not Donald Trump's only worry, because there's going to be attachments and exhibits and witness proffers. Jack Smith didn't ask for this. As a prosecutor, he would prefer not to put on his mini trial and signal all of big pieces of his evidence, but he's been left, with no choice by the United States Supreme Court, who said we got to do a fact-bound analysis of context and the indictment, even though it is proper and not going to be dismissed on most of any of the grounds that Donald Trump has raised. He's got his work cut out for him as a special counsel to prove to the judge and ultimately to the Supreme Court again on another go around that he has complied with the immunity decision and his superseding indictment, and specifically has he met his burden and has he overcome the presumption of immunity for even official conduct type things stretched to its outer boundaries. And that's really where the rubber meets the road. Donald Trump knows that, and in one of his pieces of paper he filed recently, most of which the judge didn't ask for, he actually went further. This is back to KFA's pig theory, that Donald Trump is a pig because he got an amazing decision that we now have to deal with in the immunity decision, but it wasn't enough. And buried in his his paper opposing the 180 pages, he said basically that everything that Donald Trump did should be categorized as absolute immunity, and nothing should be able to be rebutted by the prosecutors, because that's the only way to implement the new precedent by the Supreme Court. It totally turned the decision on its head, and I don't think that's where Chutkan is going to go. And so therefore, we're going to see. You know, we were speculating on Legal AF the other night with Karen and me about what is going to be in the 180 pages. There's going to be, I think it's in a couple of categories. I think it's going to be some stuff, evidence that we were like, oh, snap, they have that. Like that guy testified to them. They have that audio record. We didn't know that. There's going to be a little bit of that. That's going to be the headlines. Then there's going to be a bunch of stuff that's like, oh yeah, we saw that in the Jan 6 committee report. Yeah, that's consistent. Yeah, I've heard that one before. I'm not to say that the Jan 6 report, and it's 350 pages, were the blueprint for the Department of Justice. It wasn't completely, because they had more access to things, because they're the United States of America and prosecutors, and they can get lots of things through subpoena that the Jan 6 committee was denied to them. But there's going to be that kind of that category. And then, you know, just I think those are the two major categories. So I'm waiting, I'm salivating when we finally get the record open in the next day or two to know what is the stuff that we were like, whoa, that one's cooperating. They got that statement, because that's going to really and the other thing, to leave it on this, the other thing that's been chapping Donald Trump's ass and his lawyers is that the way that the judge set up the briefing schedule, it gives the government 2 bites at the apple, 2 briefs. This isn't the only 180-page brief. We're going to get a 50 or 60-page brief in reply. It's also going to have things attached to it. And they're going to get the last word, not Donald Trump, before the November election. Just the way that briefing schedule is going to be. And so Donald Trump's not going to have another debate, apparently. He's going to let J.D. Vance have the last word to 30, 40 million people on October 1st, which I really can't believe the tactics and strategy behind that. J.D. Vance getting his clock cleaned on national television with a huge audience is going to be the last word. It's going to be the last October 1st. It's going to be the last word for the Trump campaign with that many eyeballs. It's amazing to me. And then you add on to that, this is going to be happening before the election with 2 briefs by the Department of Justice. So we're all on MissTrial, on Legal AF, on the new Legal AF MTN YouTube channel. Free subscribe. We're going to have a lot to talk about and chew on over the next week or two.
We sure are. I mean, I just can't, you're 100% right, Popok. And that's just going to be incredible to see all of that, the things we didn't know about, and just to see how strong the case is. You know, look, sometimes it's frustrating though, because a lot of it's going to be redacted. It's like, you're going to read like, and then candidate Trump said, and then it's blacked out or something, like, you know what I mean? It's like all the juicy stuff, it'll be like blacked out, because they're gonna redact some of it, and then there's gonna be all kinds of speculation. They're gonna talk about individual number 1 or witness number 4, and we're gonna all say, oh, it has to be this person, because, you know, so there's gonna be a lot of that we will all interpret it, and lots of people will be able to glean a lot from it. And yes, there will be things that we see as well, but there won't be this mini trial that we were hoping for. It doesn't seem, unless, of course, Judge Chutkan wants oral arguments on this. So who knows? Who knows? This is unprecedented, since this is new law, and this is all something that just did not exist before. But yeah, breaking news that they've complied with their requirement to drop their brief on immunity by 5 o'clock today. So they did it, and we'll see how long it is and what is actually in there. Hopefully very soon. Yeah. So that's what's going on. But anything else, guys, that you want to talk about before we sort of reach our conclusion?
It's great to have you with us.
Oh, we joked that it's, at least for one episode, it's MissTrial Plus. You know, and I loved it. I want to, you know, and you guys come on with Karen and me and Ben and me, and
yeah,
let's keep the symbiotic relationship going. This ecosystem that we've created, pro-democracy, at the intersection of law and politics. Can't think of anybody better to do the politics part than the only person on this network who was an elected official and member of the House, in Kathleen Rice. Right? We don't, and I don't. There's what What network has this many former prosecutors, federal prosecutors, state prosecutors? No, none. And that's why this network has become, Legal AF and MissTrial is the home of a type of commentary and analysis at the intersection of law and politics that I defy anybody to find anywhere else. Lawyers talking about things, they know what they're talking about at that intersection. How refreshing.
It's amazing. And that's why I love Midas Touch is it's just, first of all, it's the community of people, the audience members and the people who come together. But also, as you've pointed out many times, Popok, that nobody tells us what to say. There's no editorial kind of board that says, say this or don't say that. There's our sponsors don't tell us what to say. I mean, this is our experience, and we do all the homework ourselves. We read the filings ourselves. You listen to the oral argument today yourself. So you're exactly. So we do the work so that you don't have to. And look, when we're giving you our opinion, we'll tell you that it's opinion. And as Kathleen was pointing out before, it would be great. Facts matter. The truth matters. And the whole premise of Midas Touch and certainly these shows is to bring the truth and to bring facts, and then formulate your own opinion based on that. But you need to know the truth. And that's something that Donald Trump and MAGA are, unfortunately, you can't rely on them for. So anyway, we've reached the end of another wonderful episode of MissTrial, this one being a crossover with Michael Popok, my friend, my colleague, my co-host, and one of my favorite people on the whole planet. Love you. Thank you so much for joining us. We really couldn't thank you enough. And we look forward to contributing to the Legal AF, the new channel.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.